Ethan Cole stepped off the diplomatic shuttle into the sterile, gray corridors of Station Vyeth. The docking bay teemed with activity, traders bartering over crates of rare minerals, engineers shouting over mechanical drones, and various alien species mingling with a tension that always accompanied interstellar commerce. Ethan adjusted his tie, the knot pulling snug against his throat, and surveyed the crowd. He wasn't here to haggle or make friends, he was here to meet the most feared warlord in the quadrant. "Keep close, Simmons," he said over his shoulder. His aide, Liam Simmons, carried a satchel filled with datapads and holoprojectors. Liam was younger, eager, and far too optimistic for Ethan's taste, but he was sharp and his quick thinking had gotten them out of tight spots before. "You think he's as terrifying as they say?" Liam asked, his voice tinged with both curiosity and nerves. "We'll find out soon enough." Ethan strode toward the meeting chamber where the towering figure of Gurvad awaited. The Shelvarek warlord had arrived 2 days earlier, his arrival turning the station into a whirlwind of whispered rumors. The Shelvarek were known for their brutal combat traditions and their unyielding sense of honor. Gurvad was the epitome of their ferocity, a leader who had never backed down from any challenge. When they reached the chamber's doors, 2 Shelvarek guards in ornate battle armor stepped forward. Their golden breastplates reflected the dim overhead lights, and their eyes scanned Ethan and Liam with the intensity of predators sizing up their prey. "We're here for the meeting," Ethan said calmly. "I'm Ethan Cole, Earth's representative. This is my aide, Liam Simmons." The guards exchanged glances before stepping aside. The doors slid open, revealing the warlord. Gurvad was larger than Ethan had imagined. His scarlet skin gleamed under the chamber's stark lighting, and the long black braids that fell down his back were adorned with metal bands and teeth from creatures that likely no longer existed. His eyes, yellow and sharp as a blade's edge, locked onto Ethan the moment he entered. "You are the human," Gurvad said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate the walls. "I am," Ethan replied. "I appreciate you agreeing to this meeting." Gurvad snorted. "You requested it with such insistence. I was curious. Humans are known for their arrogance and lack of subtlety." Ethan didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he gestured to the round table in the center of the room. "May we sit?" The warlord's gaze flicked to Liam, who had gone pale but was holding his ground. "Is this one your servant?" "My aide," Ethan corrected. "He handles logistics and ensures I have the information I need. Nothing more." Liam swallowed hard but managed a stiff nod. "A pleasure to meet you, warlord." Gurvad let out a deep, gravelly laugh, a sound that wasn't entirely comforting. "Aide. Servant. It matters little. Sit, then." The 3 of them took seats around the table. A holographic map of trade routes and resource deposits shimmered to life above the table's surface. Ethan glanced at Liam, who quickly keyed in a sequence on his datapad, projecting Earth's proposed agreements into the holographic display. Gurvad studied the projections with a dismissive air, his massive arms crossed. "I am told humans seek what we possess," the warlord said, his gaze fixed on Ethan. "You are bold, thinking you can simply ask for it. Boldness is sometimes necessary," Ethan said evenly. "What we're proposing is not a demand but a partnership. We can offer." Gurvad held up a clawed hand. "Your offers mean nothing if they show weakness. The Shelvarek do not barter like simpering merchants." Ethan leaned forward slightly, meeting the warlord's gaze without hesitation. "I didn't come here to show weakness. I came here to find common ground. You can dismiss our proposals if you like, but I believe there's a solution that benefits both our people." Gurvad's eyes narrowed, and the chamber grew quiet. For a long moment, it seemed as though he might order Ethan out or worse. But then he leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from disdain to something closer to intrigue. "You speak differently than the others," Gurvad said. "Most who come before me tremble. You do not." "There's no point in fear," Ethan said simply. "Fear doesn't solve problems." The warlord tilted his head, studying Ethan as if trying to uncover what made this human so unflinching. "Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought." Ethan allowed himself the faintest hint of a smile. "Shall we continue, then?" As the discussions wore on, the tension in the room remained, but something subtle began to shift. Ethan's calm persistence and Liam's adept data handling started to wear away at Gurvad's initial hostility. The warlord still spoke with the sharpness of a blade, but there was less contempt in his words and more measured consideration. By the time they left the chamber, The foundations of a dialogue had been laid, though the path forward would be anything but smooth. Outside the chamber, Liam let out a long breath. I thought he was going to rip our heads off. He still might, Ethan said with a wry smile. But for now, we've got a chance. That's all I need. Liam nodded, his earlier nerves giving way to a cautious optimism. What's next? Ethan adjusted his tie once more. We keep talking, and we find a way to get him to see that we're not so different after all. Chapter 2. Diplomatic Disharmony. Ethan glanced at Liam as they walked through the bustling corridors of Station Vyeth. The echoes of alien languages and the hum of automated cargo drones filled the air. Liam was scrolling through his datapad, his brow furrowed as he reviewed the details of the Shelverek's economic structures. Looks like their trade policies are heavily influenced by something they call the Stride of Honor, Liam said, breaking the silence. It's not just about resources, they see every exchange as a test of their standing. They'll never take a deal they think makes them look weak. Ethan nodded, his gaze distant. That explains why Gurvad kept pushing back even on mutually beneficial terms. If he thinks he's giving us something without getting enough in return, we're at a standstill. Liam sighed. If we can't present a proposal that appeals to their honor, this is going nowhere. The two men entered a conference room filled with holographic displays. A dozen human and alien diplomats were already seated around a circular table, each reviewing their notes or quietly discussing strategy. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew how critical the upcoming session would be. Ethan took his place at the head of the table. Liam sat beside him, ready to provide any data they might need. Let's review, Ethan began. Our primary goal is to secure access to the Shelverek's rare mineral resources without sparking any kind of conflict or political backlash. But we need to approach this from their perspective. What do we know about their hierarchy and values? A younger diplomat named Richard spoke up. The Shelverek revere strength, physical, intellectual, and moral. Their leaders are chosen based on how well they can prove themselves in the eyes of their peers. If we want Gurvad to agree to any proposal, it has to look like a victory for him. Ethan leaned forward. Exactly. So what can we offer that he'd consider a win? A brief silence fell as the group exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, an older advisor, Jane Walters, cleared her throat. Perhaps we can frame our request as a strategic alliance against a common problem. If the Shelverek see themselves as protectors of certain trade routes, we could argue that granting us access to those minerals helps them maintain that position of strength. Liam tapped a few commands on his datapad. That might work, but it'll depend on how we present it. Gurvad won't go for any deal that feels like charity. We have to make it seem like he's the one taking the lead. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. We'll adjust the language in our proposal to emphasize his leadership role. Instead of asking for their resources, we'll propose a joint initiative that allows the Shelverek to showcase their dominance in that region. Richard frowned. What if he still refuses? We've already seen how resistant he can be. Ethan glanced at Liam, who had been silently scrolling through his notes. What do you think, Liam? Liam looked up. If Gurvad values strength and honor above all else, maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. Instead of a formal proposal, we could challenge him, metaphorically, I mean. Frame it as a test of his leadership and strategic vision. If he can see the long-term benefits for his people, he might be more inclined to agree. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Jane added, and we should include a clear path for them to exit the arrangement if they feel it compromises their values. That way, it's not a trap, it's a test. Ethan leaned back in his chair, considering their options. All right, let's rework the presentation. Liam, draft a revised outline of our proposal with this new approach. Richard, gather the data on how this would affect the surrounding systems and trade routes. Jane, put together a briefing on Shelverek cultural values that we can reference during the discussion. We need to have this ready by the time we meet with Gurvad again. The room buzzed with renewed energy as the team began working on their tasks. Liam slid his datapad over to Ethan. I've already started on the draft. Take a look and let me know if you think we should push the leadership angle more. Ethan skimmed the text and nodded. This is a good start. Add more emphasis on how this partnership highlights their strategic vision. They need to see this as a chance to reinforce their standing. As the two men refined the proposal together, a subtle sense of purpose took hold. They weren't just trying to broker a deal, they were navigating the intricate dance of diplomacy, balancing trust and respect with strategy and persuasion. Chapter 3, A Crack in the Armor. The negotiation chamber felt colder than usual as Ethan and Liam returned for their next meeting with Gurvad. A faint mechanical hum filled the air, accompanied by the occasional sharp hiss from the station's ventilation system. This time, the Shelverek Warlord stood as they entered, his massive arms crossed over his chest. His imposing presence was no less striking than before, but there was something different in his demeanor, an undercurrent of curiosity beneath the steel-hard exterior. Ethan motioned for Liam to set up the revised holographic display. Liam moved quickly, his hands deftly tapping at his datapad until a new projection materialized above the table. This time, the hologram showed a series of overlapping trade routes, resource allocations, and a central hub, one that put the Shelverek in a commanding position. Gervad studied the projection for a long moment before speaking. "You have changed your approach, human." Ethan met his gaze. "We realized we weren't presenting this in a way that reflected the strength and leadership of the Shelverek. This proposal puts your people at the forefront. You're not just granting resources, you're shaping the future of interstellar commerce." Liam cleared his throat and stepped forward. "By coordinating trade flows through your systems, you maintain control over key routes and ensure that all parties recognize your strategic foresight. In other words, you'll be seen as the primary architects of this new alliance." Gervad's eyes flicked to Liam. "And why should I trust the word of an aide?" Liam hesitated but held his ground. "Because I've done the calculations. If you review the data," he gestured toward the hovering charts, "you'll see that this plan solidifies your influence without compromising your autonomy. We've accounted for every variable." The warlord's expression softened slightly, though his tone remained firm. "A bold claim. Your numbers may be accurate, but your words still need weight." Ethan stepped in. "That weight comes from your decision, Gervad. If you approve this arrangement, it will be because you see its value, not because we begged for it." Gervad grunted, the sound a mix of approval and skepticism. "You humans are persistent. It is different. Many would have given up by now." Liam glanced at Ethan, who gave him a small nod. Taking the cue, Liam continued. "We understand that the Shelverek respect those who stand firm. That's why we haven't walked away. We believe this can work for both of us." The room fell silent as Gervad studied the holographic display once more. His thick fingers tapped against the table's edge and his expression remained unreadable. Finally, he turned his attention fully to Ethan. "You speak as though you understand the Shelverek," he said. "Yet you are not one of us. What makes you so certain this plan will not fail?" Ethan leaned forward. "Because we've studied your culture. We've listened. Your people value strength, honor, and long-term thinking. This proposal aligns with those principles. If it didn't, we wouldn't be presenting it." Gervad's gaze lingered on Ethan for a moment longer. Then he inclined his head, just barely. "It is a starting point, but you will need more than words and charts to convince the Council of Elders." Ethan straightened. "Then we'll meet with them. We'll answer their questions and provide whatever they need. But for now, do we have your approval to move forward?" Gervad exhaled deeply and gave a slight nod. "For now. But do not think this means I am satisfied. You will still need to prove that your plans can hold under scrutiny." "We'll be ready," Ethan said firmly. As they left the chamber, Liam's shoulders slumped with relief. "I can't believe we actually got him to consider it." Ethan smiled faintly. "We haven't won yet, but we're on the right path." Liam looked up at his colleague. "You know, when I first signed on for this, I thought it would be all data analysis and briefings. I never expected to stand face-to-face with someone like him." "Neither did I," Ethan admitted. "But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that no matter how different we seem, there's always a way to connect. You just have to keep trying." The two of them walked down the corridor together, their pace steady and their focus sharp. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but they had started to crack the armor surrounding Gervad's trust. Now, they just needed to build on that foundation. Chapter 4, Whispered Bridges. The light on the surface of Braxis 4 was dim and scattered, filtered through thick, sulfurous clouds that gave the entire landscape an amber hue. Ethan and Liam stepped off their transport shuttle, the gravel crunching underfoot. They stood at the edge of a massive field of obsidian spires, the jagged formations stretching for miles, glinting faintly in the strange light. Saria, the Shelverek liaison, waited for them by a cluster of the formations, her posture as rigid as the rock itself. Ethan nodded in greeting. "This the site?" Saria's yellow gaze fixed on him. "It is. The mineral deposits you are so interested in lie beneath these formations. The Shelverek have harvested here for generations. And we're here to inspect it as part of the proposal," Ethan said, his tone measured. "Thank you for meeting us." She gave a curt nod, her expression unreadable. Liam glanced at Ethan before stepping forward. "We brought the necessary equipment to confirm the composition and map the density. Once we have the data, we can present it back to the Council." "Good," Saria replied, her voice clipped. "You may proceed." Liam moved toward the spires, scanning the ground with a handheld device. Ethan stayed back, observing Saria. She was quiet, her gaze fixed on Liam as he worked, but her stance suggested unease. After a moment, Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. I can't help but feel you're not thrilled about this. Her eyes flicked to him. Your human interests often lead to overreach. I am here to ensure that does not happen. That's fair, Ethan said with a small nod. But our goal isn't to exploit. We're trying to build something that benefits both sides. Words are easy, she replied. Your actions will show if you truly mean them. Ethan looked out over the spires. This place is incredible. Do your people have any stories about it? Her expression softened slightly. There are legends. It is said that long ago, when the first Shelvarek arrived on Braxis, these spires were alive. They moved, shifted, and spoke to those who could hear them. The first warlord of our people was said to have communed with them, gaining wisdom and strength. Over time, the spires grew still, but their presence remains a reminder of our origins. Ethan glanced at her, intrigued. That's quite a story. Do you believe it? Saria hesitated, then shrugged. I believe that our history is carried in our traditions, our memories. Whether the spires were truly alive matters less than the lesson we learned from them. He nodded thoughtfully. Sounds like something my grandfather used to say. He was a farmer back on Earth, and he always told me the land remembers. Even if you can't see it, it holds on to the past, the people who worked it, the lives it sustained. She studied him for a moment, her gaze more curious than guarded. Humans have their own legends, then. Plenty, Ethan said, smiling slightly. Most of them aren't as poetic as yours, though. Usually involve heroes with questionable judgment. Her lips curved just enough to suggest a smirk. We have those as well. Liam returned, holding up his device. I've got the preliminary readings. The mineral concentration is as high as we thought, maybe even higher. This site could sustain a long-term operation. Good work, Ethan said, clapping Liam on the shoulder. Let's start mapping the surrounding area. Saria, if you have any recommendations on where to focus, we'd appreciate your insight. She stepped closer, looking over the data Liam displayed on the device. If you wish to confirm the stability of these deposits, the western ridge is critical. It has the most consistent yield. Then that's where we'll start, Ethan agreed. Liam, let's head west. As they began walking toward the ridge, Saria kept pace alongside Ethan. Liam moved ahead, scanning the terrain and taking notes. The air was heavy, the faint scent of sulfur making conversation sporadic. Eventually, Ethan broke the silence. I get the sense that you're skeptical of our intentions. Saria's gaze shifted to him. I have seen many outsiders seek to profit from Shelvarek resources. Few have cared about our traditions or our people. Ethan met her eyes. Then we have a lot to prove. You do, she replied evenly. But you also have an opportunity. If you approach this with honor, as you say, then perhaps our peoples can find common ground. He nodded. That's the plan. They reached the ridge where the spires grew taller and denser. Liam set to work again, scanning and cataloging as Ethan and Saria stood nearby. The tension between them had eased, though their mutual caution remained. Ethan could sense that this inspection was more than just a data-gathering mission. It was a test, one that would determine whether trust could be earned or if the gap between their species would remain. Saria spoke after a long silence. If? She regarded him carefully, her expression unreadable. Finally, she inclined her head. We shall see. Chapter 5 In the Shadow of Tradition. The chamber of the Shelvarek Elders was an imposing place. Carved from obsidian-like rock that shimmered faintly under the dim lights, the walls loomed high, etched with ancient symbols and patterns that told a story of countless generations. Ethan and Liam stood at the center of the room, surrounded by the weight of tradition. The air was thick with the unspoken expectations of those who had come before them. Gervad, the ever-commanding presence, stood a few steps away. His golden eyes scanned the room, taking in the quiet stares of the elders who had gathered. Saria was nearby, her posture as rigid as a statue, her expression neutral. Ethan took a slow, measured breath. Thank you for allowing us to address the council today. The eldest of the elders, a tall, gray-skinned Shelvarek named Vortek, leaned forward. We have listened to your proposals, human. Gervad speaks of your determination, but determination alone does not satisfy the Shelvarek. Liam glanced at Ethan, his brow furrowing slightly. If I may, Liam began, our intention isn't to change the way your people operate. We're not here to interfere. We simply believe that by working together. Vortek raised a hand, silencing Liam. It is not the interference we fear. It is the weakness. To align with another species is to invite scrutiny. The Shelvarek cannot appear dependent on outsiders. Ethan stepped forward. Elder Vortek, no one here questions the strength of the Shelvarek. Your people's history, your traditions speak for themselves. We're not asking you to compromise that. In fact, we want to show that you can lead the way forward. Another elder, a stern-faced female named Kashira, narrowed her eyes. And what does leadership mean to you, human? Ethan glanced at Liam. Leadership isn't just about power or dominance. It's about seeing the long-term picture. It's about making decisions that benefit not only today but tomorrow and the years beyond. That's what we're proposing, a way for both our peoples to thrive together without one side overshadowing the other. Gervad let out a low grunt, his gaze fixed on Vortek. I have tested these humans. They did not break. Their persistence is worthy of our consideration. Vortek's expression remained impassive. Perhaps Warlord. But strength is not measured by persistence alone. The council must be convinced that this partnership will not tarnish our honor. Saria spoke then, her voice steady and calm. I have spent time with these humans. I have seen how they approach this process, not with demands, but with a willingness to learn our ways. They respect our traditions. That is not something all outsiders can claim. Ethan turned to her, surprised but grateful for her support. We understand that honor is central to everything you do. That's why we've structured this proposal so that the Shelvarek remain the leaders. You will still hold the power. We simply wish to contribute where we can. Liam nodded, stepping forward again. In our cultures, we have a saying, a strong foundation supports the tallest structure. By working together, we're building that foundation, not taking away your strength, but reinforcing it. Kashira's gaze flicked between Liam and Ethan. You speak as though you have already won our trust. Not at all, Ethan said quickly. We're asking for the opportunity to earn it. We'll prove ourselves through action, not just words. Vortek regarded Ethan for a long moment. You claim to respect our traditions. Yet respect must be shown, not merely spoken. Ethan nodded. What would you have us do to demonstrate our respect? Vortek's lips curved slightly. If you are as genuine as you claim, you will undertake a journey to the ancestral vortex. The room grew quiet. Liam shifted uneasily. What is the ancestral vortex? Saria answered before Vortek could. It is a sacred site deep within the caverns of this world. It is said that only those who walk its path with pure intentions emerge unscathed. Gervad's gaze settled on Ethan. If you accept this task, the council may reconsider their stance. Ethan straightened, glancing at Liam. We accept? Liam hesitated for a moment before giving a resigned nod. If that's what it takes. The elders exchanged looks, their expressions carefully neutral. Finally, Vortek spoke. Very well. If you succeed, we will continue these discussions. But know this, should you fail, it will prove that you were unworthy of our trust from the start. Ethan held his ground. Understood. With that, the meeting was adjourned and the two humans were led away to prepare for the journey ahead. Gervad walked behind them, his heavy footsteps echoing through the chamber. I hope you understand the gravity of what you've agreed to, he rumbled. The vortex is not a test taken lightly. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. Then it's a good thing we're taking it seriously. Gervad let out a low chuckle. You are either brave or foolish, human. I suppose we will find out which soon enough. As they walked, Saria caught up to them. The vortex is dangerous. Many who enter do not return. Liam looked at her, his face pale. Great. Sounds like a vacation. Ethan smirked. Don't worry. We've faced tough odds before. We'll get through this. Saria studied them for a moment before nodding. We shall see if your actions match your words. Chapter 6, A Trial of Resolve. The entrance to the ancestral vortex was a jagged wound in the earth, a black void framed by towering shards of volcanic glass. Faint gusts of warm air exhaled from the opening, carrying with them a strange, metallic scent. Ethan and Liam stood side by side, their expressions equally tense. Behind them, Gervad and Saria looked on, their forms shadowed against the flickering lights of the Shelvarek settlement in the distance. This is where you prove yourselves, Gervad said, his deep voice reverberating through the clearing. Inside, you will be tested. Strength, courage, and intent, these are what the vortex will measure. Ethan glanced at Liam, who was adjusting the straps of a small gear pack. You ready? Liam gave a short laugh, more nervous than amused. Not really. But I figure if we don't do this, we're done for anyway. Saria stepped forward, her eyes narrowed. Many have entered and failed. If you think this will be simple, you are mistaken. Thanks for the pep talk, Liam muttered, earning a faint smile from Ethan. Gervad motioned toward the entrance. Go. We will wait. Ethan led the way, the light from their portable lamps slicing through the darkness. The air grew warmer as they descended, the walls of the tunnel closing in, the ground uneven beneath their boots. Liam stayed close, muttering under his breath about the ominous feel of the place. You think there's something down here? Liam asked quietly. Like something alive? Let's hope not, Ethan replied. Though with their luck. Their voices echoed in the stillness, a reminder of just how isolated they were. As they continued deeper, the walls began to glisten, reflecting their lamplight in strange, shifting patterns. The faint metallic scent grew stronger, mingling with an earthy undertone that was almost comforting. Eventually, they reached a wide chamber where the path split in 3 directions. Ethan stopped, frowning at the branching tunnels. Which way do we go? Liam checked his handheld scanner, shaking his head. Nothing useful on here. It's just rock and heat. Ethan studied the tunnels, then pointed to the middle one. Let's try this one. They moved forward cautiously, the temperature rising. The passage narrowed, forcing them to duck and twist their way through tight spaces. They climbed over jagged rocks, their hands and knees scraped by the rough surfaces. The journey was slow and physically taxing, but neither of them complained. The only sounds were their breathing and the occasional drip of moisture. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into another chamber. This one was different. In the center stood a tall, pillar-like formation covered in strange carvings. The air seemed to vibrate faintly, a low hum that they could feel in their chests. What is this? Liam whispered. Ethan stepped closer, shining his light over the carvings. Some kind of ancient marker. Maybe a record of those who've come before us. As he reached out to touch it, the hum grew louder and the chamber began to shift. The ground trembled and the walls seemed to ripple like water. Liam grabbed Ethan's arm. I don't think we should be messing with that. Before Ethan could respond, the carvings began to glow, filling the room with a soft, golden light. Shapes moved across the pillar's surface, figures, battles, moments of triumph and defeat. It was as if the stone was alive, replaying fragments of history. Ethan and Liam watched, entranced, as the images played out. Then the glow faded and the chamber grew still. The hum subsided, leaving behind a heavy silence. Okay, Liam said, breaking the quiet. That was weird. Ethan nodded. But I don't think it was dangerous. It was showing us something. Showing us what? Liam asked. Ethan thought for a moment. It felt like a reminder. Maybe of the Shelverek's past. Their struggles, their victories. It's like this place is testing us not with traps but by making us understand their perspective. Liam scratched the back of his neck. So we just move on? Yeah, Ethan said. Let's keep going. The test might not be over yet. They picked a new tunnel and pressed forward. The path grew steeper, the air heavier, but their determination remained steady. They worked together, lifting each other over obstacles, sharing the weight of their gear, and pushing through their fatigue. Each step was deliberate, each choice made with care. After what seemed like an eternity, they reached a final chamber. This one was different from the rest, spacious, almost serene. In the center stood another pillar, simpler than the first, with a single, glowing symbol at its top. The light was soft, warm, and inviting. Ethan and Liam exchanged a glance. I think this is it, Ethan said. What now? Liam asked. Ethan approached the pillar. We place our hands on it. Together. Liam hesitated, then joined him. They pressed their hands to the glowing symbol. The light pulsed, and the chamber was filled with a gentle, resonant tone. The air seemed to shift, and the walls glimmered faintly. When the light faded, they stepped back. The pillar remained, but the symbol's glow had dimmed. Did we pass? Liam asked. Ethan smiled faintly. I think we did. They turned and began the long trek back to the surface, their steps lighter than before. Neither spoke much, but the tension that had marked the beginning of their journey had eased. Together, they had faced the vortex and come out stronger, ready to continue their mission. Chapter 7, A Moment of Clarity. The council chamber was as imposing as ever, its high ceilings casting long, shifting shadows. Gervad sat at the head of the table, flanked by Saria and the other elders. Ethan and Liam stood before them, battle-worn from their journey through the vortex but steady and composed. The silence in the room stretched as the elders exchanged unreadable looks, their expressions carved from stone. Ethan spoke first, his voice calm. We completed the journey as requested. Whatever the vortex was meant to show us, we faced it. Vortex leaned forward, his gray features illuminated by the dim light. You claim to have seen the vortex's truth. What did you learn, human? Liam shifted, unsure if he should answer. But Ethan nodded subtly, encouraging him. It's not just about surviving, Liam said, clearing his throat. It's about understanding. The vortex wasn't a physical challenge. It was about seeing the Shelverek for who they truly are. Your past, your struggles. Your strength doesn't come from conquering others. It comes from enduring, from carrying your history forward. A low murmur ran through the elders. Gervad's gaze remained fixed on Ethan. You speak of understanding, yet understanding alone does not prove worth. Why should we trust you now? Ethan held Gervad's gaze. Because we aren't asking for trust without action. We've already begun proving ourselves by meeting your challenges head-on. Every step we've taken has been in service of building something real. Something that benefits both our people. Kashira, another elder, narrowed her eyes. Words are easily spoken, human. What will you offer to solidify this partnership? Ethan turned to Liam, who tapped a few commands on his datapad. A new holographic projection appeared above the table. This time, it wasn't just numbers or trade routes. It showed detailed schematics for a shared station. A neutral hub where humans and Shelverek could work together, trading resources, sharing technology, and coordinating exploration. This, Ethan said, gesturing to the display. A place where our peoples can meet as equals. Not as conquerors, not as subordinates. A true partnership. The station would serve as a symbol of what we can accomplish together. Vortek leaned back, studying the projection. A bold proposal. But how do we know this will not lead to more conflicts, more division? Ethan stepped closer to the table. Because this station would operate under joint oversight. A council made up of representatives from both sides. Every decision made together. It's not about one side dictating terms. It's about mutual respect. Saria spoke for the first time. And you believe such a balance is possible? Ethan looked at her, meeting her gaze. I do. If both sides are willing to try. The chamber fell silent once more as the elders exchanged glances. Finally, Gervad spoke. You have shown courage and determination. And your proposal, it carries potential. But this decision is not mine alone. The council will deliberate. Ethan inclined his head. We understand. Thank you for considering it. As the council adjourned, Ethan and Liam left the chamber together, the weight of the moment settling over them. They walked side by side through the station's dim corridors, the muffled sounds of activity echoing around them. Liam finally broke the silence. Do you think they'll agree to it? He asked. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know, but we've done everything we can. Now it's up to them. They paused at a viewport overlooking the planet below, the swirling clouds reflecting the faint light of the distant star. Liam leaned against the wall, his shoulders slumping slightly. This whole thing has been a lot, more than I expected. Ethan smiled faintly. It's never easy. Diplomacy rarely is. Liam looked at him. And yet you just keep going. How do you do that? Ethan turned his gaze back to the planet. Because I believe it's worth it. If we can find a way to work together to build something that lasts, that's worth all the trouble. Liam nodded slowly. I guess I'm starting to see that. It's just, man, those elders are intimidating. They're supposed to be, Ethan said. But intimidating doesn't mean impossible. They stood in silence for a while longer, watching the distant storm swirl across the planet's surface. The vortex had tested them, the council had challenged them, and now they faced the uncertainty of what would come next. But together they'd come this far. Whatever the council decided, Ethan and Liam knew they'd done everything in their power to show the value of collaboration and mutual respect. Chapter 8. A Future Reimagined. The Shelverek Council's decision came after what felt like an eternity. Ethan and Liam sat in the guest quarters of the station, the tension between them thick. Ethan reviewed his notes, though he already knew them by heart. Liam paced, occasionally stopping at the narrow window to peer out at the endless void of space. Finally, a chime echoed through their quarters. Ethan stood, nodding for Liam to open the door. Saria stepped in, her expression neutral but her presence unmistakably official. They have reached a decision, she said without preamble. Ethan nodded, his stomach tightening. And, Saria glanced between the two humans. The council has agreed to proceed with your proposal. The trade station will be constructed, and our peoples will share oversight. Liam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They agreed. His voice carried a mix of relief and disbelief. Saria inclined her head. With conditions, of course. But they recognized the potential benefits of such a partnership. Ethan took a step forward. What conditions? They insist that the council's authority remain balanced. Both sides must appoint representatives who are willing to uphold our traditions and maintain transparency. Any violation of the agreement will lead to immediate suspension of cooperation. Fair, Ethan said. We can work with that. Liam finally stopped pacing and leaned against the wall, a tired grin spreading across his face. I can't believe it. We actually did it. Saria's gaze lingered on Ethan. This is only the beginning. Building trust will take time. I know, Ethan said, meeting her eyes, but it's a start. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning and preparations. The station's construction required coordination between human engineers and Shelverek craftsmen. Ethan and Liam spent long hours negotiating logistics, adjusting timelines, and ensuring that both sides' needs were met. One evening, after a particularly grueling meeting, Ethan and Liam sat together in the station's modest cafeteria. The room was quiet, most of the station's inhabitants having retired for the night. Liam poked at his meal with a fork, his exhaustion plain on his face. You ever think we get this far? Liam asked, finally breaking the silence. Ethan shrugged, sipping his coffee. I hoped, but I won't lie, there were moments I thought it would all fall apart. Liam chuckled, shaking his head. You hide it well. You always seem so calm. Years of practice, Ethan said, smirking. Besides, I had you to keep me grounded. Me? Are you kidding? Liam laughed. I was the one freaking out half the time. And I needed that, Ethan said. Kept me from getting too comfortable. You kept me on my toes. Liam raised an eyebrow. So what you're saying is I'm basically your emotional support aide. Ethan laughed, the sound echoing through the empty cafeteria. Something like that. Saria joined them unexpectedly, her presence always more silent than they anticipated. She set down a datapad on the table and took a seat. The initial construction phase is complete. The first Shelverek delegations will arrive tomorrow. That's good news, Ethan said. The sooner we can get everyone in the same space, the better. Agreed, Saria replied. She hesitated, then added, the council will be watching closely. Do not expect an easy path. Ethan nodded. I never do. Saria's gaze shifted to Liam, who looked up from his meal, startled by her attention. And you, Liam? You have proven yourself capable. The council noticed your efforts. Me? Liam asked, sitting up straighter. I'm just following orders. Ethan's the one who You played your part, Saria interrupted. The Shelverek value the strength of the group as much as the strength of the individual. You stood beside them, sat in companionable silence for a moment before Saria stood. I must prepare for the arrival of our delegation. Rest while you can. The real work is only beginning. After she left, Liam leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. You think this is going to hold? I mean, we're talking about two completely different species trying to run something together. Ethan shrugged. It's not going to be perfect, but nothing worth doing ever is. Liam smirked. There you go again with the calm, wise act. Somebody has to keep you grounded, Ethan replied. Liam laughed again, the sound filling the cafeteria. They had come so far, and though challenges remained, the two men knew they had built something meaningful together.